You are listening to the Taps and Teas Show, weekly conversations for people passionate about marketing, golf, and craft beer. Marty is the co-founder of Bad Rhino, an award-winning digital marketing agency helping golf and craft beer brands get real results in social media marketing. Here is your host, Marty McDonald.
All right, so what's your story? So I want to talk to you today a little bit about what is your story online. And we're going to go with the beer approach first. You could just swap out the word beer for golf or whatever industry you're in. And normally this is a process where most people go through when they're starting their business. So let's talk from a beer perspective to keep it simple. And we'll go on from here. And as you see, as things start to develop, and that's the whole point, is coming up with your story. So let's say you started off and you really appreciate great beer. And after years of enjoying great beer, you decide, you know what? I'm going to try home brewing. And perhaps a spouse, a friend, or another family member got you a home brewing kit as a holiday or birthday gift because, well, you already have everything and they couldn't think of anything else, from a beer side. So you brew and you figure it out and you brew your first successful batch. You share it with your friends, you got some rave reviews and some encouragement to say, you should really do some more. Or, well, maybe you screwed up the first couple and you went back to the drawing board rather than giving up and just trying to give people bad beer. But you did, you studied up on the process. You came out with an idea of how to make the best beer. You researched how to be a brewmaster. Possibly you even enrolled in a course, but you really started to figure these things out. And you went to the end of the internet for the best sites on home brews. You went there and you said, you know what? I'm going to map out the closest brewery supply stores. I'm going to go there on the weekends. You automatically started to really become a quote unquote professional hobbyist at this. Then it happened. You could sell this. Someone said to you, it's really good. You should quit your job and start your own business. And it got you thinking, well, you know what? Maybe I can make enough money to offset the expense of this hobby and, drink some beer for free and maybe have some friends and some people come over and we can talk about it in different styles. And down the road, somebody came to you and said, you know what? Let's really start to convert this into somewhat of real business. Craft beer is booming. People are doing this. Sure, it'll only be part-time, but there's a group of us and we can, handle this and start a mini business. So you start off, you created a mini brewery or at least a brewing business, and here you are. You have that great beer. People are enjoying it. They're having fun. And maybe you have that one that potentially becomes your flagship brew. Great. Now you start to put some things together and you have a couple more. So you and your partners are sitting there and you've researched what it takes to really start a small business. Someone has some accounting skills, or maybe you hire a bookkeeper. You chatted with an attorney. You're getting everything lined up to start a business. The bank account, the insurance, an EIN number, and bam, you're in business for yourself. There's a couple of things that happen when you go down that road of entrepreneurship and self-employment. You have this desire to work for yourself rather than somewhere else. And that's what happened to me in starting Bad Rhino. But looking out there and being a go-to resource as an agency for small business and craft beer and golf brands and a host of other industries, you really learn through other people's stories and you hear about their entrepreneurship, that seed that's burning deep in them. They have an idea, or maybe they're just an accountant that's going out on their own, but everybody has a story of how they got there. And it's important that once you have that story, you start to market it or put it into your marketing. No one wants to hear it. It's like, well, I was starting to really get bored at work and I started this job because, well, I was an accountant. I went to school for accounting and I started this business because I just didn't want to go to work. Now, that might be your underlying reason that you didn't want to work for somebody else. But at the same time, you need to craft a little bit of a story behind your business or behind your beer or behind your golf brand, whatever it might be. If something started off as more of a hobby than anything else, then that's going to be your story. So my story was back in 2002, I was working as a headhunter. And I enjoyed the work being a recruiter and helping people find jobs and helping my clients fill hard to fill positions. But I was like, how do I find more people or how do I find more opportunities? And what I did was I really started to focus in on LinkedIn to become a better recruiter. And then I started to focus in on the marketing side of how do I get people to look at my profile? How do I reach out to people? How do I craft a message, a marketing message essentially, to become that go-to resource for those people? And it started off as being a hobby. My brother then turned me on to the first forms of like Google AdSense. And like I said, LinkedIn was a major focus for me being a recruiter. And I started focusing in on how to make money marketing online. And that's my story of how Bad Rhino came about. And we're not talking about that story right now, but I can tell that story over and over again. So it's important when you're starting out to start to put those pieces together, where you came from and how you started your craft brewery. So once you get that with that entrepreneurial spirit, you know, what's next? You're like, how we got this off the ground? How can I grow? How can I build further? And it really comes back to that story and that marketing story that you can tell in any format. You can do it in forms of pictures, in forms of video, copy. You could tell the story via email on your website. There's a whole host of ways to do it. But in telling that story, you need to make sure that you have the foundation in place. So as I was saying before, is you can go back to the beginning of being a hobbyist within craft beer, using that one as the example. And when you start to put those pieces together, it forms the basis of your marketing. So it's important that you do not shy away from your story at all. You make sure that it's truthful. On the golf side of things, I get handed products all the time or mailed to me as well and say, I think this could be the next big thing in golf. And it's something to help a golfer get better at their game, whether it's a video thing or whether it's, you know, a piece of plastic that goes on the end of your club. I've gotten mailed a ton of things. And if you want to, you can feel free to mail them to me as well. I'm at the Bad Rhino office. I'm more than happy to take a look at things.
Hey, if you're enjoying what you're hearing on the show and want more, head on over to tapsandtees.info and get our free report with game-changing tips and strategies straight to your inbox. Just enter your info and stop being stuck with no marketing plan.
But most of the time I get them and there's no story that comes along with there on their website or in the product brochure or anything. It's just, here's what will help you do. And the facts and figures of fixing a slice or fixing somebody's putting, those are all great. But at the same time, it's like, how did this come about? Like, was this person in their garage and they accidentally found a piece of plastic and they put it on their putter and helped them hit straighter putts? Whatever it was, that story must come out. And the way that happens is you document it through your marketing. And you can go back if you're sitting there and you're listening to this and you're like, well, Marty, we're an established craft beer and we have a small local presence and we're happy with that. What do we need to do? Do we need to go back and redo everything? No, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. Is just embrace your mistakes, embrace all the fun stuff, post about when you first got started, post about things that are out there that maybe you thought, no one's going to be interested in this. Those are the things that people are interested. You have to differentiate yourself. And if you differentiate yourself through the story, that part becomes really fun. And that's really the foundation of a successful social media plan. Going back to my own experience, when I started, putting those things as a hobbyist online, selling affiliate products, learning Google AdWords, learning how to create websites, learning how to set up basic autoresponder. Back then, it was just like Constant Contact and newsletters. I started learning things about a whole process. And then people, accountants, lawyers were where I cut my teeth. They were just trying to create the basic website and send basic email newsletters. This is back in 2003, 2004. And I was able to help them navigate the process. But I noticed really quickly that no matter what realm of marketing we were using, there always seemed to be something new that popped up, something shiny that would distract you. And people get excited and sucked in. And as fast as the internet was growing then, and as fast as things change now, there were so many different marketing ploys that were popping up and evolving. And I always knew that we should never talk to them about something that isn't going to work for clients. But there were a lot of things out there in marketing that were pushing the wrong things. And one thing that was always consistent was if you could tell a good story, that really worked. Even if you were a lawyer or an accountant, you don't sell accounting services or legal services to somebody that's just facts and figures, you're going to sell an accounting service so you don't get in trouble with the IRS and paint a picture of somebody that did. Or if you need a lawyer, you're not necessarily calling a lawyer right away just because you want one, as a retainer. You probably have an issue that you need to have solved. Maybe it's a legal issue right out of the gate that's criminal, like, hey, I have this issue like a DUI, like that's immediate. Or maybe you're looking to build a business and you need more of a consultant, but you want to talk about the story. And accountants and lawyers sometimes put those into like fear-based stories. So when I was going through all that, fast forward a little bit more and continuing to help these small businesses and myself building a side online income, it was fun. It was really fun. And in 2010, Rich, my business partner here at Bad Rhino, we're sitting around talking about the evolution of digital marketing, which really became social focused. And he had a blog that was sitting out there that was really doing well. And we were just talking about things. And that's how it all came about. And we came up with a name, Bad Rhino, to really, just accentuate something that was fun more so than anything. And that's a story for another time. But we tell that story literally the same way. Here's how we got started. Marty was doing a lot of side business for about, 8-9 years. Then it came about of being, hey, how can we tie this together? Enter Rich. And it just, happened. Bad Rhino was just a cool name that Rich had thought up, but it's part of our story. And we talk about how it came about exactly that way. There's some more pieces to it, but that's our story. And the story isn't, went on safari and saw a rhino or was at the zoo and saw a rhino and thought that would be a great name for a business. And that's not really the case, but it's real. And that's what I'm encouraging you to think about is, what is your story? When you're going back to the beer and tying us all together here, is all of a sudden, you start off as a hobby and you have some great beers and you're all confused. It's like suddenly I'm a business owner, entrepreneur, you're in management and leadership, you're running things instead of being involved on the creative side of things and then not just brewing beer. So you have a lot of fun with it at first, but then that becomes your strength, but it also becomes your Achilles heel at the same time. A small business owner, and I speak from experience here, you have to wear many hats in order to be successful. Whether you're running, your enterprise as just a sole proprietorship or you have a couple partners, there's a lot more that goes into successful business than just having a great beer. You're dealing with accounting, regulations, payroll, taxes, tax withholding, inspections. That list just goes on. And you're learning that your business can be very, very lonely. Like, who do you turn to? You have this great product, but now you're like, okay, I got all these other things and it's getting bigger and bigger. The one thing that we've done at Bad Rhino is being able to help that brand get that story together so that the whole group is on the same page. So you're constantly marketing the same way. Even if we're in there for a short period of time, it can then become something that you can do in-house much easier because you have your story together. If you have partners, they have a certain viewpoint versus you as maybe the brewer, and maybe the other gentleman or girl is being somebody that is coming from a business side and they have a different story about how they started in the business. Well, let's tie all that together so that you can dream big and then start to put the right marketing in place so that you have a solid foundation, a great story, plus you have a great beer, and the sky's the limit. So that sort of stuff is what we're talking about when I say, what's your story? How did you get started? How did you get involved in all this? And in the next episode, we're going to talk why your product. Why do people want to buy your product? Why do people want to drink your beer? Why do people want to invest in you? Their time, their money, whatever. So we'll talk about that. But if your story's straight, the rest of this becomes a heck of a lot easier.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.